Before we get into this video, I need to make something very clear. I started this video back in October last year. Because of this, I will not be mentioning this video that Twisted Doctor made back in April, because first of all, I didn't script that part in and I have no interest in doing so. And second of all, this was an April Fool's video and it wasn't connected to the actual mainline story of Re-Nightmare as far as I'm concerned. And this is just talking about what was made at the time when Re-Nightmare was still going. That being said, I also still stand by my point that I do not support Twisted Doctor anymore, and this is more of just a like a video essay on something I grew up on and something that I personally just wanted to talk about, because even though I don't support Twisted Doctor anymore, I still kind of like the characters, like I like Mystery and Alfred and Cal, but like the past versions, you know what I mean? If Twisted Doctor does see this, I don't want him to take any offense to this, nor do I think that these characters are better or superior to the new versions of his characters. I'm aware that Re-Nightmare has been changed into a story called Dolai, or a game, but Dolai isn't really one that I'm interested in looking into because I'm not really into the psychological horror thing, though I am fairly confident that the story is definitely improved upon, especially with the big fandom that it's got right now. Well, fairly large fandom, I don't know, I've seen a bit of fan art. So yeah, don't take this as a thing of me saying that Re-Nightmare is better or anything. It's actually quite the opposite. This is what I'm talking about in the video. But yeah, like I said, I will not be talking about this video. I will just be talking about what was coming out at the time, and yeah, I will still be using my recordings from October. Also, by the way, I mentioned this near the end of the video, but I feel like it would be detrimental for me to not mention it now. But I have linked a video in the description that talks about the situation surrounding Twisted Doctor, and also basically kind of explains why I personally don't support him. The video is made by a person called Nice Stories, and it basically documents everything from 2017 to 2022 or 23, whenever the video was made. And yeah, I just wanted to bring that up now, just in case, before people start watching this video, so they can understand why I say that I don't support Twisted Doctor anymore. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Enjoy the video, I suppose. If you know me well, you know that I entered the animation meme community around 2016 with my first animation meme, the I Do Love You meme. I was 12 years old when I first made that animation and got into the community, so I can safely say I've seen a fair few things happen in that community. I mean, I even had my own memes to show for it. I had done many memes like the I Do Love You meme, Nightmare Parade, Forget, Booyah, Off the Sea, and even the Swing It meme. The reason I mention all of this is because I feel like it's important for people to know the impact this community has had with me, and also just so people know that I, know what I'm talking about. But with this animation, you could probably deduce that I had a lot of inspirations, which I did. I was a fan of Starry-At, Jaeger, Birdie, before the drama got his channel taken down at least, and more notably, Key Dog. Fun fact, I was actually quite popular in the Kitty Dog Amino in its golden age back in 2017, but we're not going to talk about that today. But amidst these inspirations, there's only one person I'd like to talk about today. Someone that, if you had the same experiences in the community as me, you may know very well. And that person is Twisted Doctor, formerly known as Sleepykinq. Now, before I go any further, I want to make something clear. Twisted Doctor goes by Bones, so I may call him that every so often. But for now, when I'm referring to Bones in the present day, I will call him by his current alias, which is obviously Twisted Doctor, or just Twisted for short. But when I refer to him in the past, I will refer to him as Sleepykinq, just so that there's no confusion on when and where this takes place and such. So who is or was Sleepykinq? Sleepykinq was an animator who made a lot of memes around 2016 to 2017 about his original characters from a webcomic he called Nightmare, which was later dubbed to Re-Nightmare as he adapted it into an animation. Now, what was Nightmare?
We'll get to that later.
Before I get into this though, I do want to say that I did used to love this series as a kid. I feel like that's in part to the character designs though, as like, you know, colourful designs can really catch the attention of a lot of people, which is probably why I was obsessed with a certain other animator for a while. I also noticed there's a small fandom online trying to revive Re-Nightmare and improve it into their own story or alternate universe. So that means the comic must be good, right? It must have some semblance of a plot, right? Yeah, let's just get into it. Also, as a quick note, Twisted Doctor has actually adapted and changed the story completely into a horror game named Doll-Eye. I haven't played it or looked into what it's about, but I have heard very good things about it. So just keep in mind that everything in this comic is no longer canon to the actual characters. It's been years since this comic came out, and while it isn't relevant anymore, I still want to talk about it. Similar to when Cinebero3 made her video regarding that one pilot by Lupus Vulpus. Besides, I think this will be good for new writers to learn some kind of do's and don'ts of writing. I'll also give my commentary as we go along and pause in between the synopsis to give my thoughts. That being said, let's get into the comic. The comic starts off with the persona that Bones used at the time, saying he's the main character and then wandering off. That's it. Okay, not really, but come on, there couldn't be a worse way to start a thriller horror comic you've got going on. Okay, but with the actual start of the comic, we're introduced to an actual character named Alfred Brown, along with his boss, Mystery Burns. I also want to mention, before we go any further, the creator feels the need to put in introductions to every character between panels. I won't mention these apart from one specific character who we'll get to later, but just know that with every new character introduced on screen, they get a whole page revealing their name and what their relationships are, or a specific trait they have depending on what's happening. After Alfred walks in, Mystery accuses him of being late and Alfred apologises. After that, Alfred begins to ask what he should use for something, and Mystery straight up asks for a child, presumably to experiment on. Alfred refuses, and so Mystery pulls out a knife on him. Now, this is where I have to bring up that we're never actually told what these characters work as. Are they scientists? Doctors? It's literally never specified, and we literally never see them doing whatever job they're doing. This will come up again later, I promise. Continuing on, the scene cuts to another character getting thrown out of a bar. This character is named Jack, and the creator describes him as being nice but having an alcohol problem, and he's a real silver wannabe over here. We are also introduced to Jessie, who wakes up and exclaims it's her birthday. She goes to tell her dad, who turns out to be Jack, and he tells her to shut up before punching her so hard that it pops a blood vessel.
So that was a f***ing lie.
Jessie cries, and then we get this lovely shot of an unbranded beer bottle. Immediately the scene cuts once more and we see Alfred again. This time we see he's bleeding by the head and his ears have been cut off. And while it isn't shown here, his tail had been sliced off down the middle as well. Then immediately after, Alfred's son Shia walks in to Alfred's workplace apparently. Shia runs in front of Alfred in an attempt to defend him, but ends up turning his back to Mystery to proclaim this. But with his back turned, Mystery immediately stabs a knife through Shia's back and through his chest. Then we get another cut to Alfred's family where we see his daughter Shai calling for Shia and Alfred's wife Yuki as well. And then we immediately cut back to the Holy Trinity again, like we needed that fucking cut at all. Anyway, we get a shot of Shia bleeding out and Alfred goes to attack Mystery. However, Mystery grabs Alfred's arm and somehow possesses him. For those confused, don't worry, I am too, and I'll describe Mystery's powers later in the video. So Mystery takes over Alfred's body, and it's implied that Alfred is somewhat aware during his possession, thanks to the speech bubble here. We are then introduced to another character, a character who used to be my favourite in the series named Cal. From what I remember, Cal is some kind of sheep, ram or a goat, and he's also like a half angel and a half demon. He's also shown to be Alfred's best friend, along with having an obvious crush on him. After walking in, Cal asks if he can help Alfred since he's wounded, and Mystery, while in Alfred's body, agrees, and we see Cal pull out a wrench. We are then shown that Cal did that to give Alfred new ears, which are entirely made of metal, which, while I like the design idea, it seems counterproductive. Considering Alfred is a Shiba Inu, the ear canal seems like it would be completely covered by the metal, meaning he wouldn't be able to hear, but you know, that's probably just me. Then Mystery leaves and leaves the mess for Cal to clean up, which Cal scoffs at. Considering Cal is Alfred's best friend, I have to wonder why he didn't recognise Shia, or at least be like... Anyway, after that, we cut back to Jessie where we see her in her room. We are shown that Shy and Jessie actually live across the street from each other in another panel where Shy is yelling for her brother again. We see Jessie escape from her house, where Mystery, still in Alfred's body, follows her. We also see Shy looking out of her window where it's revealed she knows Jessie. How well she knows her is up for debate. Are they classmates? Who the fuck knows? So Mystery pulls out what I assume is something like Midazolam or whatever and knocks Jessie out with it. Cheyenne leaves the house to try and help, but by the time she gets out, they're both gone. Then we cut back to Silver the Hedgehog where he notices Jessie has escaped through the window. However, he doesn't seem to take much mind to it as he grabs a beer bottle. However, said beer bottle turns into a character who actually doesn't have an official name that I can find. Either way, they blame Jack for making Jessie run away, and Jack turns the blame on them, claiming alcohol makes people do bad things. Also, this character is never shown again after this. I'm not sure if they're like a hallucination from Jack going off his rockers or maybe an apparition of sorts, but whatever, let's move on. Comic cuts again, where this time we see Jessie tied down cupcake style with a still possessed Alfred standing over her. Jessie tries to attack Mystery with surprising strength for an 8-year-old considering she managed to break a leather bind, but seeing this, Mystery pulls out an axe and cuts off her arm in response. In the next panel we see Shy in Nowhere Middle Of, where she goes in to see Mystery, or in her perspective, her father torturing Jessie. We see Mystery exit Alfred's body after Shy calls to him, and Alfred gets a glance of Jessie, who's presumably dead from shock or blood loss. Alfred is undoubtedly confused, having not remembered his possession, even though it seemed he was aware the first time Mystery possessed him, but let's just ignore that. Shy claims that she hates Alfred for killing her friend, and Alfred tries to ignore the situation and tells Shy that they should get home. When Shy asks, Alfred says that he'll try and do something to help Jessie before they make their way home. Just leaving a dead body in a house, I suppose. The two get home and Yuki asks where Shia is, just ignoring that her husband is injured apparently. We see Alfred stammer, beginning to tell Yuki that he's dead, and once Yuki finds out, she tells Alfred to get out of the house and quite literally throws him out the door. We see Alfred sitting alone on the street where he cries till Cal approaches him again. Considering the situation of Alfred's son and presumably his daughter's friend dying, we get this pretty inappropriately placed bashful scene between Alfred and Cal. Anyway, Cal says that he's seen everything, apparently not bothering to use his powers to help in the moment, and tells Alfred that he knows someone who is powerful enough to beat up Mystery. In the meantime, he offers Alfred a place to stay, and when Alfred agrees, we see Cal fantasizing about some pretty whack shit. The comic time skips once again to Cal's home, which we see as a cloud house, Rainbow Dash style. Cal gets rejected by Alfred after they say goodnight to each other, and we see Cal go back to his room, where we actually see him take his hoodie off, where we get a first glance at his wings and see the feathered one is bandaged. We then learn from a short montage that Alfred helped Cal when they first met, which is where we learn Alfred let him meet his family, gave him a job as a cleaner, and later became his close friend. Also, now I know Cal has 100% met Alfred's family, I now have an excuse to get mad at this panel in the comic, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, Cal says everything was going well until the panel where Mystery shows up claiming to be the new boss in charge, where we also learn that it's been 2 years since Mystery became the new boss. Trust me, I'll get back to this scene later in the video. We then cut back to Jack, where we see him at a bar, where we also meet a bartender named Oliver, who literally doesn't add anything to the story, but I digress. Mystery then bursts in through the front door, says good morning even though it's apparently 2 AM, and then asks for some fish to eat, which Oliver says they don't have. Then Mystery says it's right in front of him and proceeds to try and eat Oliver because why not? We get another time jump where we see Kao waking up to the sound of his brother named Haruto, named Ito for short, shouting and threatening to hit Alfred with a book, believing he's a robber. After smacking Alfred around the back of the head, Kao comes in to defuse the situation and introduce them both to each other, where Kao actually introduced Alfred as his boyfriend, much to Alfred's discomfort. Right after, Alfred decides to leave the house, but feeling guilty and not wanting to walk alone, he decides to wait for Kao to come out of the house. See, this is where I have to point something out. How can Alfred stand on the clouds? At first I gave him the benefit of the doubt since I noticed there were floorboards in the house, but now Alfred is practically standing on the actual cloud bits since the house itself is shown to be in the air. To be honest, I'm mostly thinking like My Little Pony rules for this, since my theory was that Kao and Ito could stand on the said clouds because they're a mix between an angel and a demon, so I assume that maybe like the angel biology is what helped them. But Alfred, to my knowledge, is the human in the story. Yeah, he's not actually a human per se, he's an anthro character, but he still has absolutely no magical powers that I've seen, so it makes it weird how he can do this. But, you know, I might be wrong. Another explanation is that the clouds could be dense enough for you to stand on, but with that being said, if the clouds were denser than the air around it, then it would just fall to the ground. I really don't know why I just made that whole point. I know it doesn't really matter in the end, but I'm severely autistic, so let's continue. So, Kao changes clothes, returns to Ito and starts telling him about the situation with Mystery, asking him if he could beat him up. Noticing Ito isn't listening, Kao snatches the book to get Ito to listen, finds out he was reading hentai or something, and then gets chucked out the window. Kao lands on a cloud and Alfred goes to check on him to find he's bleeding, so he offers a plaster for Kao, which he takes. Once they get to work, for some reason, Kao happily greets Mystery. Seeing Mystery again, Alfred has a literal don't you want to go ape shit moment and just goes to attack Mystery, but gets caught by him. Alfred tells Mystery to kill him, but then Mystery decides to ask Alfred to take the eye of the Shinigami and give it to him. Okay, there is some significance to what Mystery is asking here, and we will get to it later, but even so, this question feels out of place even with the context we get later. Before Alfred can respond though, Kao uses what I assume is some kind of angelic spear to stab Mystery with. However, Mystery is able to break it and he proceeds to slash Kao's eye before pinning him down, to which Kao proceeds to say this. Then, Jesus Christ, Kao asks this, to which Mystery says no, he was going to kill him. Before we continue, I just want to point out that I will talk about this situation a bit more later in the video and the issues that this joke brought up, but for now I'll just say that ignoring like how bad the joke is anyway, it totally ruins the flow of the scene, so you know. Anyway, Mystery has a mental breakdown and basically gaslights Kao by seeing he's making him look like the evil one, and then out of nowhere we suddenly see Mystery get shot from a tranquilizer dart, I'm assuming, where we then meet two siblings named Nya and Neko, who were the ones who just knocked Mystery out. Alfred asks why the two shows up, and Kao explains that he quickly called them both before he shot his spear at Mystery. He also explains that he was ready to sacrifice himself for Alfred, but the siblings got there just in time to save them. Nya asks if she can keep Mystery like a pet, I suppose, to which Kao says yes to. Meanwhile, Alfred wonders if locking Mystery away is the right thing to do or not.
Oh, hello there. You should probably know who I am. What? You aren't sure? I see. Let's see. It's me, Jeremy.
From this point on, the comic takes a much different turn. This time we see Mystery as a child, or as he was formerly known as, Jeremy. We also see Alfred as a child, learning the two were best friends as kids, or at least were, as Jeremy puts it. While it's not saying much, I do feel like this arc is the best arc in the entire comic. Even so, the creator feels the need to point out that the purple text is when Mystery is talking as the narrator in the story, along with the black text just being the normal text in the story, since the fans can't figure it out by themselves apparently. We also get a short comedic scene with Mystery talking in the sound booth. I want to point out that overall I don't think this would have been a terrible idea considering Mystery's personality and how he doesn't take things seriously in a kind of like Deadpool sort of fashion, I suppose, but I don't really like it anyway. I feel like it kind of ruins the immersion. Either way, we cut back to the main story where we see Alfred doing his homework and then he gets a phone call from Jeremy begging for help, where we see a shot of Jeremy's father, who is named Arthur. Alfred tries to leave, but his parents stop him. He begs to leave to help his friend, but his parents believe that he just wishes to play, and so they push him back to his room, where he eventually attempts to call Jeremy again. After he doesn't pick up, Alfred panics that Jeremy is dead. Eventually, Jeremy calls back and asks Alfred why he didn't turn up, to which Alfred mentions his parents. Jeremy says that he hates them, says he has an idea, and then hangs up the phone on Alfred. The next day, Alfred returns home, only to see, well... We see Jeremy turn where he happily greets Alfred. Alfred understandably panics and cries for his parents, where Jeremy claims that he thought Alfred would be happy, since, in his words, Alfred claimed he hated them sometimes too. In a panic, Alfred kicks Jeremy away, which knocks him out, and he bolts away to call his uncle, who he presumably goes to live with. Jeremy wakes up eventually, and having realised Alfred is gone, he goes back home, believing that Alfred will be back again tomorrow. The next day, Jeremy returns because apparently the house hasn't been labelled as a crime scene yet, and he eventually finds a note written by Alfred, which, to sum it up, just basically begs Jeremy to leave him alone. Jeremy proceeds to have a mental breakdown about the letter and threatens to kill himself if Alfred doesn't come out, but Jeremy then turns back on his threat and promises that he'll fix everything. Here we also see our narrator Mystery say that he knows the audience probably thinks it wasn't the right thing to do, but either option he would have picked would have left suffering anyway, making him believe that there was no right choice no matter what he did. So we see Jeremy get ready to go out, and then we see Arthur come in and ask if he's really going to leave. When Jeremy mentions Alfred, Arthur points out his obsession and then tears out his eye in response. Then, after Jeremy pulls away from his father, Arthur tells him that he can't stay with anyone other than him. Then Arthur kills Jeremy. Yes, you heard that right. Arthur literally burns Jeremy to death, and we see Mystery comment on how painful the experience was, only for him to make a joke in the very next page. I can't even with this dumb shit. So, we see Jeremy in what seems to be some kind of purgatory, and then we see a shadow looming over him. Then at the next page, we see Jeremy holding onto a scythe to stop another character from slashing him. This character is named Skull, and he's a Shinigami. For those who don't know, a Shinigami is pretty much a version of the Reaper in Japan. There's a bit more to it than that, but you get the picture. Jeremy begs for his life and then snatches the scythe away from Skull. And when he asks for it back, Jeremy refuses and slashes at Skull, which gives him an idea. Jeremy slashes one more time, to which he manages to slash Skull's eye, placing it into the empty eye socket that Arthur had created. Understand why Mystery asked Alfred to bring him the eye of a Shinigami now. Finally, getting to the last page, we see Skull proclaim that he'll come back later, and we see the background lighten. Assuming Jeremy has been sent back to the real world, and he looks down. He spots those X symbols on his hands, presumably symbolising how he escaped death. And that was the last page. That was one hell of a ride, wasn't it? I mean, by this point, the comic was cancelled now, so that means there's no more to go through, right? Oh, fuck. Yeah, if any of you were in the animation meme community around 2016 to 2017, a lot of you probably remember this particular style from Sleepykinq back in the day, and may have even watched a bunch of his animations. I'm not going to talk about his art in particular for now, but I will definitely get to that later in the video. That being said, once Sleepykinq did that last comic page, he decided to make it an animated series instead. Well, it wasn't really animated, more just a slideshow if anything. Either way, I remember back in the day I watched this animated version and I remember really liking it as a kid. I even remember making a video where I voice acted Cal from the series, although that video is thankfully lost to time now. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Just a quick note, the creator mentions at the start of each video to read a comic before getting into it and also extra information. So I'll be ignoring those for now and just focusing on the actual episode itself. That being said, let's begin. We start off where we left off in the comic, with Jeremy staring down at the X markings on his hands, wondering why he's alive and about the lack of blood. Arthur then appears and grabs Jeremy, demanding to know why he's back and saying that he's going to kill him. Jeremy then throws Arthur to a wall, knocking him out and then saying that he hopes to find Alfred soon. A bit of a short episode, but whatever, it was likely a pilot, so I'll give it a pass. We learn that Jeremy begins his journey on his own into the city, all for the goal of finding Alfred again. He explains that on his way, he ran into multiple bad people and was attacked several times, so he continued to kill people in order to defend himself. He says that eventually he lost all hope, and then leaves us on a cliffhanger with the until part. We open up in the darkness where Jeremy complains that he didn't want it to end up like this, and after he hears another person talk, he quickly jumps out of the bin, or trash can as Americans call it, that he was hiding in. The stranger comes out and Jeremy apologises, but when the stranger asks for his name, he instead says it's a mystery, which stops the stranger to call him Mystery. We also learn that this other character is called Rex. Also, from now on, I will start referring to Jeremy as Mystery again, as this is where he canonically got his name. After realising Mystery is hungry, Rex offers him to come out and eat with them. We also learn that Rex is a boy after Mystery misgenders him, so also quick note that the creator put at the end of the video, Rex belongs to another user called Prince Chain, whose channel is now deleted currently. I have no idea what happened to him, so let's move on. We open up with Rex covering Mystery's eyes and he reveals the scene, and we see a theme part, which Mystery doesn't seem too thrilled about. Also, Rex ends up getting some shit back after he grabs Mystery's hand, which makes him have a little bit of a shit bit. Some unimportant stuff happens here when Mystery gets a doll for Rex, and Mystery starts to show some kind of happiness for Rex being there. We then see Rex offering Mystery a place to stay at his house, and then we get a time skip. However, I'm not sure how long this time jump was. Probably a few months at most, since they both have the same fits on, but I could be wrong. After that skip, Mystery says that he has to leave. He doesn't say why, but he tells Rex that he'll be back for him, which Rex believes for years. How many years? Well... This episode opens with Rex greeting Mystery, only to realise he's gone. So Rex decides to trust Mystery and wait for him to get back. I just want to say now, Mystery is a teenager here, okay? And this design of Mystery is canonically 41. So I honestly want to say that Rex has canonically waited 20 years at the least, though it was probably way more than that. Either way, Rex is understandably pissed off and we see him throw some candy floss onto the floor. We see a monologue of Mystery apologising to Rex and then saying that it's probably better that they never met again, thanks to Mystery's increasing criminal behaviour and all that. Skipping a fair few years, we see Mystery long into his adulthood, presumably homeless on the street. He stops the pedestrian walking by and shows him a picture of Alfred, asking if he knows him. Turns out the guy he stopped was Alfred's boss. I'm not sure what his name is, so I'm just going to call the guy Boss for now, for simplicity's sake. So Mystery begs him to take him to work with him so he can see Alfred again. Boss doesn't comply, however, and he says no before insulting Mystery and then wandering off. This understandably pisses Mystery off to no end, and he follows Boss with a knife. where Boss just labels him as cringy, which was quite the fad in 2017, let me tell you. So Mystery holds Boss at knife point and then kills him before taking his lab coat, which somehow didn't get stained with blood, but this is also where Mystery's proper canon design comes in. We start the episode with Mystery standing outside of a building where he claims that he's been waiting for this day, and he will also make sure no one divides him and Alfred again. And finally we get to see Alfred and Cal again. They are shown together working, cleaning or whatever, and chatting to each other about how boring they find their work, and finally wonder where Boss is. Right as they wonder that, however, Mystery steps in and claims to be the new boss. Alfred immediately recognises Mystery as Jeremy, but he tries to tell himself that he's dead. Mystery approaches and finally reveals to Alfred who he is, and Alfred understandably goes ballistic and tells Mystery off for what happened in their past. He demands Mystery leave him alone, and Mystery says he's not going to, and we see his eyes go dark. Cal comes in and tries to defuse the situation, and when Mystery asks who he is, he then immediately says he doesn't care, like he didn't ask in the fucking first place. Mystery then asks who Alfred is to Cal, and after Cal tells him that he sees Alfred as a good friend, Mystery loses his shit. Cal tries to explain that Alfred just moved on and didn't replace him, but Mystery doesn't take it, and suddenly his arm changes into this weird inky substance. With it, he knocks Cal out, and when Alfred calls Mystery out, he decides to grab Alfred instead. Mystery demands that Alfred begs for his life, and when he refuses, Mystery tightens his grip so hard that Alfred throws up blood, and somehow doesn't die. Nice. Alfred begs for his life, and Mystery eventually drops Alfred to the floor, leaving him and Cal alone in the building again, proclaiming he'll see them tomorrow. We open on Cal waking up, where he finds Alfred bleeding a lot, and he helps him up. Cal then vows that he'll try to protect Alfred as much as he can. We have a jump cut to Mystery crying alone, probably having realised that Alfred hates him. This causes Mystery to have a mental break, where he says he'll make sure he torture Alfred every day of his life to make him suffer. But then it suddenly goes black, and Mystery is woken up by someone. It's Nyara again. Yeah, remember her? She explains that she got a call from Cal, where he asked her for her help. So she did just that, and similar to the comic, she knocked him out and then took him to the cage, where Mystery just gives up and decides to sleep. Now, I want to point out, I have no idea what was the dream sequence and what wasn't. Was the scene with Mystery hurting Alfred and Cal a dream sequence? Was it a flashback? It's really hard to tell thanks to the jump cut, especially since most of these episodes take place before the comic and this one takes place right after. Then we get a cut to what seems to be Alfred at a funeral service, and whoop, I just spotted a plot hole. Here we see Alfred is at Shia's funeral, he says it himself. However, if you look closely, you'll see Alfred's ears aren't the metal one that Cal gave him. If you remember in the comic, Alfred got his metal ears right after Shia's death. This also makes the previous scene way more confusing, because if Mystery had a flashback, why has Alfred got his ears back? He definitely didn't have them at that point in the comic, so it seems too early in the timeline for Shia to be dead. But whatever, Cal comes up to Alfred and lets him know that he'll always be there to help him through his grieving process. Alfred thanks Cal, and then he says that he has to leave. Once he leaves, we see Cal wish him well before breaking down into tears. Okay, now we're finally done. Now let's move on to some points I have, shall we? First, I want to start with things I enjoyed about the series. Now, before I begin, please note that my opinion may be very biased, since this is something I watched as a kid, so my opinion is probably based around nostalgia. But to start, I really like almost all of the characters' designs. In my opinion, I think Cal has the best design. Just the soft brown and also the pink clothes really make him stand out to me personally. I also really like Alfred's design. Alfred is a really simple design, and while the metal ears are kind of silly, it is oddly quite interesting to look at. Besides, Alfred is supposed to be the straight man in the story from what I can tell, so his design does compel that kind of simple look, especially since he's one of the only few characters that doesn't have any powers. And finally, Mystery. Sure, a bright purple cat isn't realistic, but neither is a half-angel demon goat, so I'd say he gets a pass. While I think his pelt is a bit bright in the comic, he was later changed colour-wise to be slightly more dull, which I think looks a bit better for him. Another thing, I really like the art style in both the series and the comic. The comic art style is really cutesy, and just seeing how the characters are drawn by themselves without the dialogue is just nice to watch. I also like the series art style too. It's a bit more iconic to me since I had seen it a lot in the animation meme community back in the day. I also like that Sleepykinq tries to take the series a bit more seriously when he gets to the episodes, since I noticed a lot less jokes in the animated one. I can clearly see that with this style, there seems to be some inspiration from the game Wandora and the Great Blue Sea. I haven't played the game, but I have seen all the endings, and I also recognise some of the music from the game being used in the series. I also noticed Mystery had a necklace from a character in that game, and also shares a resemblance to the villain in that game, in part with his personality and a few facial expressions. Also, this is a bit of a personal thing, but if you get rid of the adult themes in the story, I could definitely see the characters being used in a kids show of sorts. Now on to everything else. Now, with my criticisms, I mentioned before that we literally have no idea what these characters work as, which made it even stranger that Mystery got away with working as Alfred's boss for 2 years. I'm assuming they're supposed to be doctors, since it mentions on Mystery's reference at the time that he's a fake doctor. I'm highly positive that Mystery never got any kind of PhD, and as far as I could tell, had no education at all. How did he manage to get away with being the boss for 2 years? Speaking of that, where are they exactly? What working place? City? Country? Do they work in a pharmacy? A clinic? A hospital? Where are the higher-ups? Why is it just Alfred and Cal working all the time? Also, these names and the introduction of Skull makes me wonder if this takes place in Japan or something, but then we have a bunch of Western names present, like Jeremy, Alfred and Arthur. That's not to say Western names can't be in Japan, but there's no mention of it or if they've moved there or anything like that.
Hey, Angel from the future, this could also work the other way around, like for example, Cal being someone from Japan that came over to like somewhere in America or wherever Re-Nightmare takes place, but yeah, this was just a point I was trying to make.
I know I'm probably looking too deep into it, so for now I'll just say these guys live in nowhere middle of or something, because good god. As for the time period, it's never explicitly stated, but we know Re-Nightmare takes place in 2006 thanks to one drawing that I can see with Alfred at Shia's grave. Other than that, it never explicitly says it in the story. Why does Skull leave Mystery alone for so long? We know that Skull's eye was removed by Mystery, which made him fuck off somewhere saying he'll come back later, but he never came back. While we don't see it, we know Mystery has taken Skull's scythe as well, as we see it in a few animations and such, but assuming Skull is the Shinigami, wouldn't he have had the power to take it back once he's healed? Or did Mystery kill him? Do you have anything of that sort to go off of? No? Great. Okay, so in the series we are shown that almost all the characters have magic of some kind. We could see Cal has some kind of angelic spears, although they don't affect Mystery, we can assume they'll affect everyone else. We could see that Arthur has fire powers, and Mystery has quite a few, so let me go over them. Mystery, as confirmed in the series, has the ability to possess people. He seems to be immortal to some degree, thanks to Cal's ability not doing any damage to him. His arms can become larger with an inky black substance, which are much stronger than his usual arms, though this only seems to happen when he gets upset. And debatably, I want to say that Mystery may have some kind of supernatural strength or something, considering he was able to take down 2 full-grown adults as a child, and also a practical god as well. This leads me to ask, why is Alfred the only one without powers? I can understand Cal having powers, but why does Arthur have powers? Is he a demon of some kind? It doesn't seem like Mystery had any powers as a kid, and we have never seen him use any kind of flames, so we can assume abilities aren't hereditary. But does that mean Arthur taught himself? Does that mean Ream Nightmare has some kind of magic system in place? I would assume there is, considering how normally magic is treated, but it makes me think, is it some kind of My Hero Academia situation where only a few characters get magic? Or is anyone able to use magic if they teach themselves? There's really no answer at all to these questions. I also want to point out that even though Alfred has no powers, I noticed that before he got his tail cut off, his tail had an extra mouth on it. Is this tail sentient or is it just an extra mouth? I'm aware Alfred is a Shiba Inu, but where did he get that? Looking at his parents, we can't see a mouth on the tail of his mother, so we can assume that he probably got it from his dad, but again, it's impossible to tell. That, and with the stub on Alfred's tail when it gets cut, we just see a bone, so that leads me to believe there's no esophagus for this mouth, meaning Alfred can't eat from it, and it's mostly there for self-defense or something. I know it's probably not that deep, but god, my head hurts. One thing you've probably noticed is that all the characters seem extremely unsympathetic to others, even if it's played as a joke. I can understand why Mystery isn't sympathetic, since he seems to show signs of being sociopathic, but then we get to characters like Cal. We learn Cal has met Alfred's family, so when Cal sees Shia's dead body, he scoffs at the sight and seems more disgusted with it than anything. How are we supposed to take the death of Shia seriously when the characters in the comic aren't even taking it seriously? I'm aware Cal becomes more sympathetic in the animated version, and that leads us to our next point. The comic is called Nightmare, however, the animated version is called Re-Nightmare. At first, it seems to be a continuation thanks to the first episode taking place right after the comic. But then we see moments like Alfred at Shia's funeral, even though he doesn't have metal ears, which, if you read the comic, he got within the same day that Shia died. With this, she may argue that this means it's a remake and the timeline has been swapped around a bit, but then we see the scene with Nya at the end, proving that what actually happened in the comic was actually canon and Mystery did really attack Cal and Alfred. It's just... it's a mess, and I suppose after this the creator just realised it wasn't fixable, which is what led it to being cancelled after this episode. Okay, so this video is not to talk about the drama here, so I'll keep this brief. If you want a detailed explanation of all this drama surrounding this series, I'd recommend this video by Nice Stories, since it goes into detail about controversy and also other current issues that Twisted Doctor has put himself in. With that being said, I want to draw attention to this joke here. Now, back in the day, the creator was probably around 13 when he made this comic. Kids don't really understand the severity of topics like this. That's not to say this excuses Sleepykinq for that, but I feel like it could have been resolved if someone talked to him about it. I understand why the rant videos were made, since in the past Sleepykinq was a pro shipper, but you know. Adding on to that, I want to make something very clear. If you see a minor who is a pro shipper or something like that, please understand that they do not understand why it's so bad and was likely encouraged by an adult to do it. Giving a minor death threats and doxing them is just disgusting, especially when they don't fully understand how fiction affects reality, and I say that as someone who was a pro shipper at like 13, thanks to grooming and stuff. They need to slowly learn what's wrong, and I do encourage people to tell minor pro shippers without, you know, the harassment and stuff, because when you harass them, that'll just make them not want to change even more. Why do you think anti-antis exist? I apologise for glossing over the drama and such, it wasn't really the point of this video. I mostly just wanted to talk about an old comic that, despite its heavy flaws, is still quite dear to me. Besides, I haven't actually seen any videos on the comic, so I figured it was about time I made one. Now, I understand why Re-Nightmare was eventually cancelled and changed to Doll-Eye, but in my opinion, it's good to look back on stuff like this and analyse things. And like I mentioned at the start of this video, I noticed there were actually a few people trying to revive the old Re-Nightmare story into their own adaptation, which honestly I love to see. especially with the nostalgia factor the old designs hold. I would have loved to write more, but honestly my script is over 7,000 words long now and I'm honestly kind of tired reading this all out. Either way, I hope everyone watching this had a short trip down memory lane or at least had a fun time watching it. If you got to the end, thank you so much for watching and remember to drink some water.
How do you report him?
If you click on your watch and then click on the next up the top. I don't do it, fuck that. They're really gonna do it, I'll do it, man.